Hey guys, Crispy Bacon here with what I believe to be the strongest hunter build that we've seen to date. So this is my third and final video in a series of 3 videos showcasing what I believe to be the strongest builds for each class. I do want to mention that the builds I'm showing you here are meant to be great all-around builds. I use them just about everywhere, but there are obviously scenarios in Destiny where other gear setups are going to suit your needs a bit better. This one specifically is a PvE build, meaning you can take it into strikes, nightfalls, raids, and now with Season of the Drifter, Gambit and Reckoning are a great place to use this build, so let's get into it. So the first thing that I want to do is go over each piece of gear that I'm using in the setup, just to make sure that everyone is on the same page in terms of what is required to make this build yourself and where each piece of gear comes from. So the first one I want to talk about is Malfeasance. Malfeasance is an exotic Gambit quest reward that launched with the Forsaken DLC. It's quite a grind to get, and I would recommend using the internet as a resource to help you understand what is required to get the gun, but it is well worth the effort. So next up in our energy slot we have Loaded Question. If you've seen my other 2 videos, you're probably sick and tired of me talking about this gun, and personally I am too, but it's just such a good gun. I use it in almost every one of my builds. If you want to get this gun yourself, you can go ahead and talk to Zavala in the tower. He can help you get set up with the Vanguard and Strike Pinnacle quest that launched with Season of the Forge, and I highly recommend doing so. Last up in our heavy slot we have Hammerhead. Hammerhead is one of the very few legendary light machine guns that exist in the game. If you want to acquire this weapon, go ahead and speak with Ada1 in the tower, and she can help you get started on a quest to forge this weapon. It is a great all-around heavy weapon, and I do highly recommend it. So now moving on to gear, you can use any type of armor that you want, but one thing that we're looking for is a super mod in every slot. It can be a bit difficult to get that many super mods, and if you're having trouble with it, go ahead and check in with Banshee each week because he has a rotating set of mods that he sells, and you can eventually snag up to 5. Another thing I want to mention is that we're looking for any fusion rifle related perks to help benefit Loaded Question. So that's fusion rifle dexterity, fusion rifle scavenger, fusion rifle reserves, and one of the most important perks I'm using here is light reactor, which makes it so that we gain super energy upon every fusion rifle kill, which is a great combo. So next up we're going to talk about the subclass that we're using for this build. We are using Bottom Tree Gunslinger, which is Way of the Sharpshooter. I hope a lot of people didn't just shut off the video because I'm not using Celestial Nighthawk with Bottom Tree, but I think the subclass has a lot more going for it than people remember, so let's take a look at the perks. Knife Juggler. Throw a knife from a distance. Precision knife kills with this melee ability immediately recharge it. For a long time I thought that this melee ability was like the worst in the game, and by itself it's really terrible, but once you understand how it synergizes with the rest of the perks on this tree, you can understand its potential. Practice makes perfect. Enter a trance with each precision hit, reducing the cooldown of your super. Knife Juggler kills grant super energy, so every time you kill an enemy with your throwing knife, you get super energy, and you're going to see the potential of that later on. Crowd Pleaser. Enables precision damage with Golden Gun. Precision hits with Golden Gun generate orbs of light. So I think again it's that second line there that people are not aware of. Precision hits with Golden Gun generate orbs. So you don't even have to kill your target. All you have to do is hit them in the head and you will generate orbs of light. Lastly, we have Line 'em Up. Precision hits with Golden Gun increase its damage and extend its duration. So again, as you're hitting enemies with a precision shot, it's actually increasing the damage of the next shot in line and increasing the time that you have to shoot those 3 shots. So once you've seen all 4 of these perks, you start to understand where all the synergy comes from, but we have yet to discuss how it synergizes with the gear setup that we're using. So now it's time to go in depth with this build and talk about how all of the decisions that we've made here with gear and with subclass all synergize together and how it makes an effective build. First item to talk about is Malfeasance, and this gun is just incredible. So first of all, it just does more damage to Taken, which is useful in like every scenario, especially Gambit Prime. But in addition, every 5 shots that land on one single enemy creates this like chain reaction explosion that does a ridiculous amount of damage for just a primary weapon. Another tidbit is if multiple people are using Malfeasance, those shots stack. So say I shot an enemy 3 times and someone else shot it 2 times, that chain reaction will trigger. So if you have multiple people using Malfeasance and targeting one enemy, you are doing ridiculous amounts of damage. And yep, sorry, I gotta do it to you. I gotta give you the Loaded Questions spiel. If you've heard this already, feel free to skip forward. For those who don't know, Loaded Question has a great perk called Reservoir Burst. I'll summarize it. Basically, when you have a full magazine, which is 7 shots, that shot will do a ton of damage, but it'll also make any enemy that is killed explode. And that explosion does like just as much damage as one entire salvo would do. So this gun is one of the highest damaging special weapons in the game, and it's great for a ton of different scenarios. One thing that I've actually failed to mention in my previous videos is that it has auto-loading holster, basically, which means that when you're not directly holding it, it will reload, so that when you actually pull it out, it'll have a full magazine ready to go. And this is actually one of the perks that makes this gun so good when it synergizes with Reservoir Burst, but there's more to it than that. When you think about how much damage you can output between these two weapons alone, it gets kind of nonsensical, right? You can do 5 shots of Malfeasance, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then get that chain reaction to happen, and then you can switch to Loaded Question, shoot off the Reservoir Burst powered shot because it reloaded while it was stowed, and then you can switch back to Malfeasance and do another 5 shots. So just switching between these two weapons and doing those ridiculous amounts of deeps is crazy for a primary and a special weapon, and it's one of the best parts of this build. And then if that wasn't enough, we can go ahead and switch over to Hammerhead, which is like our back pocket DPS weapon. This is really good for taking out really high level mobs that you need to dish out as much damage as possible for, especially bosses. It's got a ton of range, so you can actually take out targets at a pretty long range, and this kind of brings me to my point about Gambit Prime. This is one of the best weapons when it comes to killing invaders and invading yourself, just because you can kill a Guardian in like 4 to 5 shots if you're placing your headshots correctly, and it's got a ton of range, so you can do that from a really safe distance away. So this gun is great for just DPSing bosses and for invading and killing other players, so it's a great back pocket DPS weapon. So now we've gotten to what I believe to be the most interesting part of this build, and that's how strong its super is because of all the synergies at play here. So again, our golden gun shots are 3 in number. Every time we activate our super, we get 3 shots, and each shot does a little something special. So again, with each precision hit that we have with golden gun, say we shoot a boss in the face, even if that boss doesn't die, we make 2 orbs. So if you shoot a boss 3 times in the head and it doesn't even kill it, we still make 6 orbs. And that's incredible by itself because it doesn't require any enemy to die for us to make orbs. So we're kind of an orb generating machine. But that being said, we also make the orbs from the enemies that die. So say we shoot a Thrall in the head, we make 2 orbs, and then we make that 1 orb from killing the Thrall. So we can make a ton of orbs per super usage. The other thing that we want to think about is every time we hit a precision shot, our damage is going up. So say we're shooting a boss and we're shooting him in the face. That first shot will do a base amount of damage, but if we hit him in the face, the next shot will do even more, and the third shot will do even more than that. So by the time you shoot all 3 of your shots, you've done a lot of damage, and you've made 6 orbs from the process. So this is a pretty good super in its own right, but one thing that we need to think about is that baked into this subclass is a way to get your super even faster, and that's from Practice Makes Perfect. Basically, each time you hit a precision hit, it gives you this stacking buff that stacks up to 5 that makes it so that your super is recharging faster as long as you have that buff. And then in addition to that, we have knife juggler kills grant super energy. So every time we kill an enemy with throwing knife, we're getting a chunk of super energy. So between knife juggler kills giving you super energy and Practice Makes Perfect, we just get our super naturally faster than any other Guardian. And then if that wasn't enough, we have Light Reactor from Loaded Question giving us super energy from each fusion rifle kill, and then we have 5 super mods. So if you can imagine this, we are getting our super so often because of all these synergies working together. And this leads perfectly into our last synergy for this build, which is Ahamkara's Grasps. So before we had mentioned that any melee hit will reload your currently equipped weapon, well this just happens to translate to throwing knife hits as well. So as we're using throwing knives to recharge our super, we're also basically reloading any currently equipped weapon while we're using those throwing knives, which benefits all 3 of the weapons that we're using here. Malfeasance has a 15-shot magazine, but we want it to be full all the time because, you know, every 5 shots we get that huge damage explosion, and so we always want ammo for this gun. As for Loaded Question, again, it has Reservoir Burst, meaning that when our magazine is full, it's doing more damage. So what we can do is shoot a salvo from Loaded Question, throw a throwing knife, which immediately reloads Loaded Question, and then get another shot immediately from Reservoir Burst. So you can imagine how much damage that you can dish out with that combo. And then if that wasn't enough, you can just reload your machine gun with a throwing knife throw. Say you're doing damage to a boss and then you run out of ammo. Instead of going through that huge reload animation, you can just throw a knife at the boss or at another enemy, immediately reload the Hammerhead, and then just keep going to town. So this is where a huge amount of synergy comes into the build, and you really never have to reload. Hey guys, this is the part of the video where I say thank you so much for watching. 1,000 subscribers, guys. This has been seriously incredible. Thank you all so much for your support. It means a lot to me. I know I'm just a bug on the windshield of YouTube, but I'm really excited for what's yet to come. A lot of you have been saying that you can't wait for this channel to grow, and it's honestly all of you guys supporting me out there that's going to let that happen. You guys have all been leaving great feedback in the comments section, and a lot of you have been reaching out to me on PlayStation Network and on Twitch. And if you want to get in contact with me, those are the great places to do it. If you have any feedback or any suggestions or just want to play, feel free to hit me up in the comments section below. But thank you guys so much for all your support. I'll be seeing you next time. Have a good one.